Hey guys, it's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. So I just got done watching a movie called Beyond the Gates with my fiancée Beth, and I just wanted to talk to you guys a minute about it. The movie has gotten some traction recently. I've seen it on Facebook a lot in terms of like horror groups and horror websites and stuff on Facebook. So I wanted to check it out. I read some reviews and people compared it to like a Jumanji with horror elements and 80s flair. And if you know me, I love movies that are from the 80s, but I also love movies that have that like stylized 80s thing going on, sort of like Turbo Kid, for instance, where the style and the substance feels like it could be from the 80s, but it's a new release. So Beyond the Gate is on Netflix currently, I believe. I don't have Netflix, and I believe the DVD and Blu-ray came out rather recently, so people are sort of humming about it on the internet. So the movie's pretty much about these two estranged brothers who go to their dad's VHS shop, and they're trying to clear it out because the dad hasn't been seen for 7 months. There's this very like stressed relationship you can tell between the brothers, like they're very different. One's very straight-laced and works hard, and the other one seems to be almost like a slacker in a sense, and they sort of butt heads. So while they're there clearing out this VHS shop, because they don't know whether their dad is alive, dead, missing, though he has done it before, they come across a VHS board game called Beyond the Gates. Now, if you've played something like an old VHS board game like Nightmare, or in this case, the DVD version I have behind me, Atmosphere, that's sort of what this movie resembles. And even though it does have an 80s flair to it, I would say besides the introduction, the movie has no feeling to me like it was in the 80s or this kind of cool old-fashioned feeling. So if you like that, throw that idea out the window, because the 80s thing is totally not there. But getting back to the board game. So what Beyond the Gates is, or Atmosphere, or Nightmare, or whatever you want me to talk about here, is you pop in the VHS tape and a board game, you put down your board game and the VHS tape tells you what to do, and you have to collect things in the game and try and finish before the VHS tape runs out. The DVD is sort of the same concept, though different actors, and I think the gameplay is a little different from what I recall, though I haven't played that VHS version Nightmare in years. So Beyond the Gates is something reminiscent of Nightmare or Atmosphere. They end up like opening up this sort of evil board game and playing it, and now things start happening to them in real life that they have to then do to complete the board game. So in concept, the movie sounds really interesting, and I like the concept, but the execution is pretty poor. The actors aren't completely up to snuff. It is a low-budget film. I believe the budget was $300,000, but I've seen movies that were made on a shoestring that just seem better. And the only thing I would say I really didn't like about the film, even though the acting wasn't like completely great, it was okay, it was passable. The thing I really didn't like was the movie's, I believe, 1 hour and 24 minutes, and about, I would say half of it is just them trying to figure out that the board game is like manipulating them and how to play it. It took forever for them to pull the instructions out. It took forever for them to get like one key or one item in the board game to start really getting into it. It just seemed like lots of like bumping into walls and, you know, we're not sure what to do. There was also nothing cohesive. So like the board game I thought was going to have some really evil element that like sort of maybe meshed with their lives or had some like bigger picture or bigger, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like something that had a bigger development in the story, but it really didn't. It was just like, oh, here's this board game. Once we complete it, we can save Dad. That's it. And that was it. So the father played the board game. They have to play the board game to save their dad. And it wasn't dark enough. It didn't have enough action or things happening. It was these small bit parts of like maybe 3 parts or 2 parts of like gore or violence. Everything else was just very lots of talking, lots of dialogue. What are we going to do? I don't know. What's going to happen here? And then like something strange happens and it gets interesting. They figure it out. They get the next piece, and then it starts again with them sitting around talking about this board game without actually playing it. They could have really had some really cool evil elements coming through with them while they were in the house, you know, maybe being chased by something, or horror elements, or, you know, on the edge of your seat type of stuff, but they didn't do any of that. So the movie sort of misses its mark, at least for me, And in terms of that like 80s flair with the intro having like 80s music and like VHS tapes, that goes completely out the window as soon as the movie starts. You can tell it's not any kind of 80s homage. So overall, if I had to give the movie like a grade, I would give it probably about a 5. It's okay, and the idea is really cool, but the execution just isn't there. If you find this maybe on like Netflix or a rental site, I would say it's probably worth one watch. I probably would say pass on a buy unless you find it like a thrift store for $1. But I appreciate what the creators of the film tried to do, and that they sort of came up with an interesting idea, even though the execution wasn't perfect. So that's my little synopsis there of Beyond the Gates. Thanks guys for watching. It's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. Be good.